finger licking. I put my finger in and touch his lips and let him lick it. He really wanna fuck me cause he know that really different. That pussy but I purr like a little kitten. He begging, asking me to let him stick the tipping. But if he stick the tipping, he gon' want the whole.
I'm feeling good. My hands are a little sweaty because it's summertime. And I really didn't need to disclose that. But how's everybody else doing? It's an interesting time. I have to say, graduating right now has been fascinating, especially because of the world we're getting released into. And I know a lot of people feel that pressure one way or another. You know, I think with the pandemic, there was this feeling or this hope, at least I had a hope that, you know, once it all kind of came to a close and people regained global health, there would be a sense of ease about whatever next phase of our life we walked into. Whereas now it feels like, if anything, we're dealing with heightened versions of what we had to deal with before, in terms of what we're confronted with on a regular basis, the violence we're confronted with, the loss of life. It's scary after spending so much time thinking about this almost supernatural thing of COVID taking lives to now kind of be reminded of epidemics we've had long before COVID. And so it's been, I say all of this to say it's been a little surreal, both in a positive and then also just in a surreal, interesting way, to observe the world we're going into and how that affects this feeling about this milestone and what it means to be released into a world. I felt like for a long time, college was like a barrier between me and the real world. So yeah, I see some alum in here. Hey. Yeah, I really appreciate all the graduation love. I know people say it takes a village. It really took a small country to get me across the finish line. But I'm happy it's done. Oh my God. Hi, Namir, how are you? I think I've already disclosed how much, how much your music helped me through. It's my pump-up music. I see some people have questions. Every time I get on live, I always think I'm gonna be a better person on live and come with a plan and things to discuss. But inevitably, I always use live as a distraction at the end of the day. So that's just not gonna happen. You're never gonna catch me on here with a plan. Ooh, can we talk about my forehead skin though? Sorry, I distracted myself. I like this question, the toughest part of college. That's a great question. Toughest part? I know it's different for everybody. I think one thing I observed in my college experience, was really especially depending on the school you go to, it's hard to embrace and balance. Embarrassing, my Instagram limit came on in the middle of this live. Okay, I'm answering this question. I was gonna say the hardest part about being in college, for me at least, is that, you know, I think especially at Harvard, there's this feeling of being a Harvard student first, above all else. And while I appreciate it, and while I understand the importance of diving into an environment wholeheartedly, it wasn't an easy path to carve, to find ways to juggle contractual obligations, to juggle my desire to continue in my career and the fact that I love the work that I do, both acting and production. But more than that, I noticed it as a through line that so many of my friends went through because, you know, I'm grateful to be dealing in a space of abundance. But what it really signified was the fact that, especially depending on the college you go to, this idea of being a student first kind of ignores the fact that you were a human before you came to college and you'll be a human after it, with many other obligations, you know, it's common to have to work for many reasons. It's common to have to be juggling certain things, or to have passions even that you hope to pursue outside of college. And so I wish there was a little bit more space for everybody to have the privilege of working, or the privilege of pursuing what you need to and want to pursue, without it feeling like in one way or another you're being penalized on the college side, because there's no structure for it. I feel like I managed pretty well, and I had a lot of support from my team because they knew how important it was for me. So I at least had the support to talk through things, to know when to turn to certain people, but it was a juggling act. I mean, I've talked about it before on here, but literally, let's say the week my thesis was due, these are all moments of abundance, no one's complaining here, but the week my thesis was due, got this 130-page document I'm writing, and we're in Paris for one obligation. I Zoom into class from Paris, and that was at that point the only class I missed this semester, and I didn't miss it because I was there. Then come back to Boston so that I could make it to certain advisor meetings, and get certain support as I crossed the finish line on my thesis. And then we went to Dubai for 36 hours for a different obligation, and I had a great time, but every moment I wasn't doing something, I was writing. I was writing in the green room. I left the event, continued writing. I didn't sleep, got on the plane, got back, took a quick nap, kept writing. And then turned it in, and I was so grateful. My mama, my Auntie Joan surprised me to help me get this across the finish line. And I really needed their moral support and their rallying. But, you know, that was a regular week. Other weeks, when I was filming Grownish, because I can't miss class. I'm in social sciences lectures, and attendance is so much of it. I would go to class, my Wednesday class, at night with a suitcase and get into the car. I'd be on my last flight to LA so that I could film Grownish Thursday, Friday. And then I'd usually work on the weekends or take a quick break and turn right around. So I'm grateful I was able to do that. But I think because there were things such as mandatory course loads, I've seen myself and so many students kind of get caught up in the grind of having to make it work by yourself. Hi, George. What's your favorite movie? VeggieTales movie? Pirates That Don't Do Anything movie? What's my thesis topic? Y'all still want to hear that? I still want to talk about it. I still like talking about it. Because I really enjoyed writing my thesis. Hi, Josh. Okay, thesis topic. My thesis topic was, which, by the way, I think this, if I'm not mistaken, is a copy of my thesis. Oh, let me not, break the box. Yikes. Yeah, sure enough. Document. This one is not bound yet. But anyway. Thesis was on Sylvia Wynter, who's this incredible artist turned scholar. Well, she still is an artist and a scholar. And she started as a dancer and a playwright, really interdisciplinary artist. And I was really honored to get to know her work through Professor Cornel West, because he intentionally was introducing me to people that I hadn't heard of. And as soon as I came into and towards her work, I was so incredibly amazed that I'd gone this long without coming across the things that she's written, because they're so influential, so well written, so thoughtful. But long story short, she's somebody that I personally felt like, while there is some renewed attention on her contributions, her consistent contributions, there's not as much attention as there should be. So I took it upon myself to particularly examine what she offers in the field of anti-colonialism, And anti-colonial work is really understanding colonialism as a concept. So Western countries, Europe, US, etc., coming in and taking grasp of the rest of the world, and the fact that you still see these dynamics, these systems of suppression occur. And so Winter takes it upon herself to answer, why is this still happening? Why centuries later, in even a US or Caribbean context, are we still dealing with the racism and discrimination that occurs from a colonial Western system? And what she proposes that I thought was so interesting is that really where colonialism lies and the problem with it is precisely in the fact that Western systems have allowed themselves or given themselves the power to define what it is to be human. And what I like about that, even though it sounds so simple and straightforward, is that there's really large repercussions to what she's saying. A lot of times when you look at anti-colonial work, and this is going to be a very brief, shallow summary, there's a lot of attention paid on the economy, rightfully so. We understand that money and power dynamics are a way in which colonialism, racism, etc., were instilled into the masses. But oftentimes, economic descriptions of colonialism lean on a Marxist framework. You really got me talking, guys. Lean on a Marxist framework. And so in many ways, you're still relying on some sort of Western framework of what economy and economic revolution looks like. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what Sylvia Wynter does is asks us to take a step back, to say, yes, the economy unabashedly has something to do with the way in which systems of oppression and suppression are perpetuated. But what she proposes is saying, it's a part of a much larger dynamic of saying that Western systems, whether it be through religion, whether it be through biology, and this concept of Black people being biologically inferior to white people as a concept that was instilled in scientific discussion as though it were fact, has created this infrastructure that does not allow Black people to be seen as human, even on the most basic level. We're not even talking about a good human versus a bad human, but being perpetually subjugated to the system of subhumanness. And so she then proposes an idea of emancipation or of freedom that centers on basically disrupting these categories of Western thought. So she shows us how these concepts of Western ideas of the human are present in our day-to-day life. Because it sounds really lofty, and it took me forever. I still don't fully understand it, but it took me forever to really dissect what she was saying. But she examines the ways in which it's ever present in our academic life, in our economic life, social life, etc. And then she proposes this idea of freedom that focuses on actively disrupting these categories. And what I love so much about it is that oftentimes, I'm at a hoity-toity institution. I'm grateful to be at Harvard, but it's Harvard. And oftentimes academics, we can be very self-important and be like, I'm doing this wonderful work. And I think academics do incredible work. And there's so many people I admire in academia. But what she encourages us to do is saying, it's the people that oftentimes through respectability politics and other things that we condemn that are actually doing the work of anti-colonialism and bumping up against Western tradition. And so we have to honor what's being done on the ground level. We have to honor grassroots movements. We have to honor day-to-day culture and not be so caught up in concepts of high culture that we're losing sight of what's actually being achieved by all sorts of folks. And that is the briefest summary I could provide of the work that I was doing. And I so enjoyed reading, and I know I'll only continue to read everything that she's written because it was extremely impactful. And I think instills a sense of hope, when I do a lot of reading about revolution, on freedom, emancipation, there is a sense, especially now when you read about emancipation or freedom, or let me put it in the first person, when I read about it, there's a certain kind of pessimism to feeling it like any of this would ever be possible. And part of that is because I think I've held on to a really neat idea of equality, equity, revolution, etc. Which means, there's this feeling of we deal with all this inequity, then boom, we're gonna get to a point in revolution and then everything's gonna be means, you know, there's this feeling of we deal with all this inequity, then boom, we're gonna get